Senator McCain, how does your most recent vote affect your constituency in Arizona?
Yes, hello. I'm John McCain, and despite my most recent vote on healthcare, I want everyone to know that I still very much hate the gooks. And the thing you have to take into consideration is that I hate the gooks more than I hate large government. And you know how much I hate large government. Thank you. No more questions.
All right. I think that's all we needed to hear. How's the brain surgery going?
Well, so my doctor happens to be an African American, so I don't feel like my brain surgery will go well, but I'm putting my hand. Well, no, I'm putting my brain. Thank you for asking.
I've actually this is unprecedented, but the brain surgeon is here with us right now. Mr. Goddamn, what the fuck is his name?
Ben Carson.
Mr. Ben Carson. Well, wait, you want to do Ben?
Hello everybody. My name is Ben Carson. I'm very sleepy, and I just want everybody to know that I did my best job on Senator McCain's brain. But as you all know, he feels me to be an inferior human being for the state of Arizona. So I wish you the best.
Are you trying to get crazy with this thing? Don't you know I'm loco? I'm thinking it's all over when I go out drinking. Oh, making my mind slow. That's why I don't fuck with the big 4-0, bro. I got to maintain, cause a nigga like me is going insane. Insane in the membrane. Insane in the membrane.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Goddamn America. Woo, shit.
Oh, man. We made it. We got it to work.
Hey guys, if you enjoy our podcast, sign up for a Patreon. Give us some money. Rate, review, subscribe, all that shit. Because, boy, did I just spend like an hour trying to fix the sound on this thing.
Hours. We just had a working hour. Our Patreon's up?
Yeah, it is. If you don't know, we have a Patreon. We're doing bonus episodes.
What is it, patreon.com/PodDamnAmerica?
I think so, but go on Patreon and just look up Pod Damn America because I'm having some trouble with the URL right now because all this shit's broken, Carlos.
Dude,
all this bullshit. When you make your own shit, you got a fucking jacked up laptop with a bunch of stains from God knows what all over it.
You got a Windows laptop. You're not doing well.
You bought it.
Usually we have Macs.
Yeah,
but you got that Windows.
Had to stay up all night on Thanksgiving. Go to that Black Friday shit to buy this for.
You gotta get it.
And it was. I don't want to support that shit, but I had to.
You go to Walmart. You step on an old woman's neck for a $2 laptop.
I got an input thing here. I got a B&H before I knew that they were evil.
Oh, I've known they've been evil for a while. You know what? Let's save that for another episode.
I mean, for real though, we should do a whole episode of B&H because that's a big like DSA issue here in New York.
Yeah.
Which can't say this enough. Did not know that before I bought all this shit, but now I'm using it to fight against them. So what do you think about that, B&H?
I think you're taking the Hasidic sword and turning it back on the owners, and I feel like that's the right move.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Well, it's like, okay, so there's this Kaepernick thing happening.
Yeah.
Wait, is that a thing that we're going to talk about?
Yeah, fuck it. Let's get into it.
All right. Okay, so this whole Kaepernick situation, right, which has been a thing going on for a while now, but the only reason that we're talking about it is because Trump made a little post where it was just like, fuck this guy or whatever.
Yeah.
I read this article a while ago that was just like, why won't NFL owners support Colin Kaepernick's efforts? And my first thought was like, Well, they probably are not going to support it because they still call themselves owners. It's just like you think you own mostly black people. Why would you? This is like new racism. Like, why would you fucking support this guy calling out your bullshit when you still call yourself the owner of you're the master of a team of black people? It's like Black Gladiator shit, dog.
They should really call them the masters.
They should call them the masters
of the Texas.
Yeah.
Whatever,
My name is Mark Cuban. I'm the master of the Mavericks. Or like that's what it is, man. You're literally be like, I own this group of people.
Well, that's
fuck you.
That's like the funny thing about American capitalism is it's all like coding shit that is essentially the same thing. You know, it's like very much close to slavery, but like what we have is like, you know, changing the language to a point where you don't own slaves, you're their manager.
I feel like the moment the Emancipation Proclamation went through, all the slave masters were like, oh, okay, so we're not gonna call it slavery anymore. Got it. Wink. Let's turn it into the 13th Amendment.
Yeah.
Let's turn it into football.
That is when the NFL was started. Actually, it was directly after
immediately.
the
Wasn't that right?
Emancipation.
Yeah. It was the North Carolina.
Wait, is that for real? I was just joking.
No, I'm joking
Okay.
too. But it was immediately the North Carolina Slavebacks versus the New York City Yankeroos, and they were all black. Don't look it up. Do not fact check us on this one.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the history of the NFL to know what the fuck really the roots are, but like it is funny because you see all those old pictures of like it was all white guys and like leather helmets and
those
shit.
leather helmets that like. Dude, they had CTE way worse.
I don't know, but they were all weak though. They were all weak white guys.
They weren't hitting each other really hard.
Like I don't know. That's a good. I wonder if they had like concussions also, or if it was just they were such doughy fucking, little ding dongs.
I think the first black guy on the all white football team hit somebody else with their head. And then they were like, "Oh no! We need helmets. This is not okay. Jeff is retarded now. Like we need helmets. That fucking goon over there. Jeff is a dentist. He was playing football for the love of the sport.
Now he's simple.
Now he's simple Jeff.
Like he got kicked in the head by a horse standing behind it, trying to clean its tail. Now we let him be the milkman, but he doesn't know what he's doing."
We let him be the milkman because that's not a real job anymore at this point.
I don't know. Anyway. Before we get into everything,
let's get started.
There's a couple things I wanted to talk about, which is one that I ran into Raycom from Tim Dillon's podcast.
Tim Dillon's Going to Hell.
And when we did this last podcast where we talked about Tim Dillon, he's a good sport, and I told you he's funny and shit. And
funny as fuck.
I got no ill will with him, but he did. I put it on Facebook and I tagged him. He untagged himself, but he did compliment your impression of him.
Thank you so much. I feel like I'm gonna take it on the road. My one man show playing Tim Dillon as himself, but not me because I'm not him.
Yeah, but then I ran into his podcast co-host Raycom at a bar, and we had a pretty good conversation. Which isn't like it says a lot about the discourse because like. There is like a lot going on right now with like, well, how much are you willing to talk to people you disagree with, and how much is it just like frustrating and shit?
Absolutely.
And, like, I try real hard to keep it normal, but like there's sometimes it's like too much. But I love that guy. Ever tell you the first sentence he ever said to me?
No, what was the first sentence?
This is like one of the best top 5 sentences I've ever heard in my life. If you guys don't know Ray Comp, just look him up. You'll get kind of like how much of a just fucked up human this person is.
Mad genius. I'd say mad genius.
Yeah. And he is smart. I think we just disagree on some really basic levels or whatever. But the first time I ever met this dude, when I first came to New York, I was standing outside at some open mic or something. Me and him, no relation, don't know each other at all. I just go, "What's up?" And he just goes, this is like a Hemingway, like baby shoes sentence.
Yeah.
He just goes, "Yeah, I got fired from the morgue over a sexual harassment lawsuit, but I got a new job. I'm the guy that takes the mugshots at the prison now." And I was like, "Hi, I'm Jake." Like,
Wow.
what the fuck? That was like so much in one sentence, you know?
I knew him when he was going through that situation. It's the craziest story in the
so
world.
that's a true story.
It's a true story. It's like there was no hyperbole.
Yeah.
It was a literal transcribing of what happened.
Yeah. Wow. Well, anyway, shout out to friend of the show, Raycom.
Shout out to Raycom. He was on a show last night that I did at Precious Metal, and he did a good job. So good looking out to you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, all these people are funny, but it's, you know, the discourse is getting like it's getting weird. It's getting to a point where you got to really ask yourself, well, can I pal around with people like this, or you know, do we have to like fucking unfriend each other and all this shit?
I mean, dude, it's getting to the point where the dancer is becoming the dance. Like, if you have a brand that's based on being contrarian by nature, then you start to delve into it so deeply that like that becomes who you are. Like I know Ray. I know he's a good guy. I know at the end of the day we'll both agree on most of the things, but like other comics or performers or whatever, like you have that thing where like I cannot budge on this one, man. I have to say what I have to say, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. We good?
Yeah. Let's just checking some levels there. All right, I think we're back up and good. Give me a check.
Yeah, I'm checking, man.
All right, we're good.
Cool.
Anyway, so you got a new haircut?
I got a new haircut.
Looks great.
Thank you so much. I went to the Dominican spot right off of Myrtle Wyckoff in Brooklyn, and I look like a proper poppy. I'm enjoying my new haircut. But one of the like the dopest things that happened to me was I went to this barbershop, and the guy next to me getting his haircut was just like very clearly gentrifying white dude, getting that buzz around where you just like shave everything on the side but leave like a 2-foot mane of hair on the top, and then you man bun it up.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I hate it.
It's the standard gentrifier's haircut, and then you know I walked in and I sat down. I'm just like, hey, look, let me just get a fade, and the guy looked at me like, thank God, like it's been a while since I've just had a fucking minority walk in here and be like, hey, start at 0, work your way up. Like that's the shave that I got, and I had a great time. The dude next to me also looked like a complete douche when his haircut was done, so mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And then when he left, it was just Latinos in the barbershop, and then they turned on this like Dominican music battle show.
Hell
where
yeah.
it was like merengue versus fucking cumbia or whatever, like, and we just watched two performers battle each other in music, and we all had a great time. And it's just like, what if America didn't have white people? How much fun would we have? Like, just enjoying the thing. Like I feel like one of my favorite things in the world growing up was watching Sábado Gigante.
Hell yeah.
But I know that I could never enjoy it as much as I really will if a white person was next to me. Like, I just couldn't.
Well, from the white experience, it's all ironic.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, it's just like, this is what Spanish entertainment is.
I'll tell you this. I did not speak Spanish growing up.
Yeah.
Sábado Gigante was around and it was on, but I definitely watched it just grinning and going, what the fuck is happening? Like,
dude,
I don't know what the fuck this is, man.
And the thing is, like, I could
like
okay.
my comedic sensibilities came from like Comedy Central and shit like that.
Yeah,
so,
me
like,
too. Yeah, for the most part, me too. But my act outs came from Sábado Gigante.
For real?
Like, dude, like the sketches they would put on were so ridiculously like. It's. I think we spoke about this before. It was just like the clearly middle-aged adult with the red wig on and the freckles painted on his face playing a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that
Yeah,
Cantinflas shit.
Yeah.
Like that is like, I'm like, oh, this is so funny to me. Like that's where I fucking came up with all that bullshit.
That's so interesting to me because like comedy itself, you know, anthropologically to look at, if you go around the world and go different times and shit, you know, I think there's like an argument that it is like an artifact or like a reflection of whatever the culture it's coming from is at that point, and that's why people have all these heady ideas about it. But like, no one can really define what comedy is or like really how it functions or whatever. So like, we have this like argument going on right now with like, you know, the latest of these bullshit things is that Mel Brooks came out and was like, PC culture's killing comedy or whatever.
Damn it.
And I don't know how I feel about that because, you know, it seems like every couple of months some old shitty white successful rich person goes like, oh, PC culture, like, and it's so clear that getting to that level and that age or whatever does something to a lot of people where it makes them, sort of understand things in this way. Like, I tried to watch Dana Carvey's special. Like,
was that 53-year-old white
just
male,
called
or whatever?
53-year-old single cis white male or some shit. And then you got like this Joe Rogan special. It's called like Triggered or some shit. And it's all these people are buying into this lame shit. But on the other side of that, like, I don't think that the Larry Wilmore show was very funny either. Like the one that was like way, way, way in the other direction of like we're super like social justice-y and shit.
Yeah.
Like that show was also pretty lame. Like it was just like the sense of humor of it was like people just doing mic drops and stuff.
Yeah.
And like I think Come Town is the only thing that's really funny right now.
Yeah.
And it stands in defiance of like both of those things, to be honest with you.
You know what? I'm a cum bitch, and I told you this. Like, if you're listening to this, then you'll probably enjoy Come Town because we are not that much more innocent than those boys over there.
No, but like I did like 5 shows with them or whatever, and like there is a rift between me and them where like I had to try to get into their world a little bit because I had to. Most people, like a lot of people in New York, probably think of me as like I'm like annoying and fucking an edgelord or whatever. But like when I'm in a room with those guys, I'm like, oh, I am the odd man out here, in that I still have a soul and like still want to talk.
So like the way that I said it, I was just like, if this was 10 years ago, I would be like, oh my God, I love Come Town. It's so funny. But today, I would be like, okay, look, please don't judge me, but I really like Come Town. Like, I feel like that's the sensibility now. Like, that's the difference between the decades.
Well, to me, it like really, it's interesting because we're living in this time of extremes when everyone's like really given up on the center and the idea that like you can do both or whatever. So like now we even within something like comedy where we have all these interesting class and background differences and stuff, like you really like people you wouldn't expect are either going to jump on one side or the other of that argument. So there's all this shit going on online where like people from both sides of the thing that like I really like Paul F. Tompkins, and I also really like Nick, and I also really like Chapo, and all these people like all have very valid arguments about why it's either true or it's not true, or in my opinion, like the idea that PC is destroying comedy is like it's more complicated than that, because it's not untrue. It's just that like comedy isn't a bipartisan system, so it's not like we have this new wave of thing that is like it's the like if you're against it then you're with everyone else. It's just that it all is bad to me. Like I watch like an open mic and I see like somebody just doing this fucking basic like new social commentary comedy that's just like your joke is just like, yeah, so I'm a woman, aka someone that people don't listen to. Like that's bad. Like you're watching it and you're like, is this a joke? Like it's a point, it's a good point, but is it a joke?
I've said this before and I'll say it again. I was on the showcase show for Nerdist a while ago, and the person before me was fucking Cameron Esposito. And she bombed so hard. You can look this up. Go to Nerdist Stand-Up Cluster episode 3. And she bombed so hard. By the end of it, she was just like, does no one care that I'm a gay woman?
Yeah, I mean, that's
does
a cop-out
care?
now,
Yeah, and she like,
and that's not that different from like when shitty edgelord guys go up and do bad comedy, and they're like, "You guys just aren't as smart as me." Like anytime a comedian is on stage and they're reaching for an out like that, where they're blaming the audience, that says so much about like what is bad about their point of view.
Yeah, well, and not even about their point of view, but like how you are presenting it.
Yeah,
because if you choose to present it in like a new and interesting way, then we're going to be engaged. But if you're just being like, look, I don't want to write jokes, let me just be like, hey, you know what's bad? racism and you don't kill and then you get offended, fuck you.
Yeah.
Go do the work. Go write a joke. Listen, we're talking shop here.
Nobody, yeah, but that's true. Like nobody, everyone is in this shit to get rich. No one is actually interested in like the actual just point of making shit funny. You know.
I'm gonna get another beer real quick.
Do it. I will implore anyone listening to this, if you're listening to us sort of trash like, you know, comics like Esposito and just like new people and shit like that. Like, don't get me wrong. You want an example of the other end of the worst shit possible? Look up the Nazi, Chris Cantwell. If you watched the Vice documentary about Charlottesville,
Oh, dude, thank you so much for bringing this up. That made me so happy.
the neo-Nazi that they follow in the Vice documentary, somebody fucking dug up his he has a stand-up set on rooftopcomedy.com.
On Rooftop?
Which is the fucking, you know, website that every
I'm on
comic,
Rooftop.
Everyone's on Rooftop. Everyone's ever done stand-up is on Rooftop because they would go film people and shit.
Yeah.
So Chris Cantwell, the fucking neo-Nazi, has a set, and it is by and large like one of the worst things I've ever seen. Like, all of these things are symptomatic of something much more troubling going on in the person's mind, you know?
Yeah, like you bomb so hard at comedy that you become a Nazi.
Yeah.
I think that's a new level of bombing. I think it'd be like, hey, how's your show last night? Like, oh, I bombed. I'm like, yeah, did you bomb? Did you become a Nazi? No. Oh, well, it wasn't that bad of a set then.
it was really bad.
You became a Nazi?
No, yeah, I just...
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I mean, the crowd hated me so much.
Dude, listen, I
hate
cannot,
Jews now.
I can't listen. First of all, hail Hitler. Second of all, because I bombed too. But also, like, I'm so like that. Are you okay?
I had to quit comedy so hard.
Yeah.
That I fell through the floor of it and into Nazis. Like,
I bombed so hard
But
that
that
I
shit-
hate Jews now.
that shit really does happen to people, though. I mean, like,
I'm sure it does. Yeah,
that guy
I'm
Chris
sure.
Cantwell's set is so interesting in that, like, as like a, you know, don't watch it for entertainment. Like, watch it to try to understand what's happening with this dude. But like,
He was like a what was
so
he like
so
a,
in his set, like the recording of his set before. It's like, you know, years before he became what he is now, which
he was
this
a
neo-Nazi.
libertarian. No?
Libertarian, which is why, like, honestly, I think there's a lot of libertarian, like, modern American libertarianism shit that like is sort of a gateway into alt-right shit, just because it sort of leads you down that path or whatever. But like, a lot of what he was talking about was like, you know, oh, Rand Paul's the only guy in the Senate that's ever made any sense or whatever. But then, like, also, he just every once in a while kept doing this thing where he kept going like, yeah, you know, and you know me, I drink a lot of whiskey or whatever. And I was like watching that, and I was like, this bothers me because I understand where that guy was going with that, which is that this identity that a lot of guys try on, where you're like, I'm a genius and I'm also drunk, you know?
Yeah, like I'll say shit that nobody else will say, but you know me, I drink a lot of whiskey.
Yeah, so that like megalomaniacal shit, like really, for some people, it leads them into some dark corners.
So that was his "You Might Be a Redneck." Was y'all know me? I drink a lot of whiskey.
Yeah, but like honestly, like I used to think being like, you know, mentally fucked up and like kind of emotionally fucked up and drinking a lot also like meant you could write the great American novel. You know, like I also used to think I was that type of person, and like I'm happy to report, as like a 30-year-old who's been through this, I don't think drinking is cool anymore. It's fun. I don't think it's cool.
No, I don't think it's cool either. I don't romanticize it as a 30-year-old now. I don't have that Hemingway thing like, oh yeah, you write drunk and it's sober. No, how about you just go to work on time? like how about you just handle your business? Like, it's not cool. It's fun when you're with the right people, but I don't think it's cool. I don't think it's an identity anymore. You know?
Yeah, no, that shit where it's your identity is really fucking
That's
lame.
a real fucking problem, man. Because I went through that phase in my early 20s where I'm just like, I'm drunk Gado.
You can tell somebody really loves drinking when they don't talk about it all the time, but they do it all the time.
Dude. Okay, yeah.
Or that same thing can be said for like anything, man.
No, it's true. It's true. No, wow, that's really true.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't, well, then it's like your secret shame.
Well, I don't even like
this is what I do.
I mean, like, I drink a lot, but for me, it's not like a secret. It's just like, oh, this isn't an interesting point anymore.
This is the baseline.
Yeah, this is just normal or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like, so you were saying about Kaepernick.
Yeah, Kaepernick. Yeah, Kaepernickio. Yeah, so it's very interesting that so Trump is coming out against Kaepernick and like shutting him down. He's being way more aggressive to Kaepernick than he was towards the Nazis. So like that's first of all, that's interesting, right?
Right, because when the Nazis came out and did Nazi shit, he's there's a lot of fine people in here. We need to take a look at both sides of it. And then when like
a black guy's doing it, it's like, well, there's only one side.
And when a black guy's doing like non-violent protests, and it's like very like clear cut, like what the message is.
Yeah,
you call him a son of a bitch, and he deserves to get fired. I mean, like there's no two ways about it. A president's a white supremacist.
Absolutely, and like I had this realization. I read an article a little while ago, where the title was just like, why won't it's like, why won't NFL owners support Colin Kaepernick? And my first thought was like, well, they won't support them because they call themselves owners. like they think they own a team of black people. like what do you fucking like? Of course they won't support Colin Kaepernick.
Dude, it's so funny.
They're calling them out on their own bullshit. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I thought you were going back into the bit.
No. I'm just saying, like, that's the point of it. Like, that's like, yeah, like, there's a really clear cut.
That shit where like
thing.
that shit always cracks me up when you watch like a football game and it's like the team's black and like the coach is or the owner or whatever. There's like old white guys in suits and it's like. I don't know. I don't want to make like a Banksy fucking painting out of this or whatever, but it's like how much more clear does it need to be like how the power structure came back to be, That also, honestly, like that jumps out at me because every once in a while I get arrested and go to jail for some reason. Keeps happening to me.
Yeah.
I've been in jail like 5 times in my adult life or something. And like something that's kind of disturbing about it is like, you read all the cold, data-driven like political stuff about it, and it's very jarring and whatever. But then like whenever I've been in jail, like especially like before I even would get arrested, when I was in high school, I got kicked out of high school and sent to Alternative Learning Center, which was the prison school.
Yeah. Sort of teach you how to be a plumber.
And I mean, like it was so clearly a pipeline into the prison system. Like everyone in there was like it was just season 4 of The Wire or whatever. And like they had this point system where every day you earned a certain amount of points. Yeah. But if you like back talked a teacher or whatever, you didn't do something like that, you could earn 4 points a day, but you could be docked like 5 points for one thing. So there were people that were just in it. Whoa. That like would just get so angry that they could not get the fuck out of it that they would get exponentially shoved back into the system. So I kept like seeing like there'd be like a guy who'd get into a fight with a teacher and the teacher would be like 10 more points and he'd be like fuck you. And the teacher would be like 20 more points. He'd be like suck my dick and he'd be like you want to keep doing this? And they would be so heated it would just go like 30, 40, 50. By the end of it the guy's 500 points into the system.
Jesus
and
Christ.
Then like you score 4 points every day. Like, there's no way to get out of it, right?
It's indentured
And
servitude.
like, literally, like, they would pick people up from it and send them to, like, whatever the fucking institutions were that slowly led into prison or whatever. But, like, the one thing that always disturbed me about it that, like, I never really knew how to pick apart was that in that school and in jail and stuff and in situations where people are so defeated that they're like, oh, the cops are going to pick me up again at some point.
Yeah.
Instead of being really furious, a lot of these kids in these black neighborhoods and shit had kind of this like they would kind of pal around with like the police and the judges and shit in the thing because it was just like that's day-to-day life. It's
You have that like that old Looney Tunes thing where like the dog walks in of the office and out of the office like hello Bob, hello George, like clocking in, clocking out. Like that's the relationship that you develop with those people.
Like I remember this security guard when I was in jail one time, and he was it was when that "Pants on the Ground" song came out, and he was singing like "Pants on the ground, pants on the ground," like and like the people in jail were like kind of like laughing and going like and like high fiving with them, and I was like looking at it like, wait, why are you not furious? And then I was like, well, this is the first time I've been in this situation for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm still like awake enough to realize that you should be furious about this. But if this is like every month of your life, like Yeah, eventually you're gonna like. You start singing the "Pants to the Ground" song with the fucking.
What else are you gonna do? Like that's
know?
like the plot of like Orange Is the New Black.
Yeah.
Like it's just like all this shit. Where it's just like, hey man, I'm gonna get arrested a lot, and if we're not cool, this is gonna be unpleasant for the both of us. That's like working in retail. Like it's all the same shit.
Yeah.
We good?
Yeah. I think I was still getting it. I was just
All right,
making sure the sound was there. Just gotta talk on the mic.
Yeah, we're being very careful about our audio. we
know.
had a whole ordeal before we got started recording this episode.
No, we're good though.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. So like, I think that's why this fucking Kaepernick thing is so interesting because like, he's probably going against a culture. You know, like there's like clearly like a lot of resistance.
Dude, whenever Super Bowl season comes around and we're all, it's November or whatever, and all the commercials are coming out and all the advertisements, that's not for Black America. That's not for Latino America. That's for white America.
Dude, you know what a good example of that is? Like,
yeah, what's that?
I always think about this, man. Like, whenever you go see a rapper, like, live, the audience is always all white people.
Yeah.
And, like, it really... You're forced to confront the fact that there's, a class system in America and the middle class or whatever, whether that's really like everything we define it to be or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a true concept in that like the people that have enough money and free time to consume culture
exactly
are, suburban white people or whatever. So we've got this system where like rappers are able to get out of black neighborhoods by being exceptional.
Yeah.
But the neighborhoods they came from are not part of the America that gets to go to concerts or whatever. So like there's always these great fucking photos of people of like rappers just like coming out on stage and just having that one just raised eyebrow and just going like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's just Chance the Rapper's on stage, full crowd of white people. But he's just like, hey, I know my people are buying my mixtape for $3 on the stream, but y'all white people get to support my industry. Like, they're working the system at a certain point.
Yeah, I mean, they seem like they're very aware of working the system, which is like really funny to me because like there's some extent to which hip hop seems very neoliberal to me. Like it's very much about like climbing and like hustling and making your money and shit, and it's very counterintuitive because. Like, it's because we have this system of telling people that they have to be exceptional to get out of their situations.
Yeah.
That flies in the face of, like, leftism and, like, socialism and stuff like that. But the people that are able to pull it off have to buy into that. So it seems like they're just kind of, like, there's no reason for them not to be into that system or whatever.
There's
but
no
like,
say socialists.
But I'll say this about this rap shit. Like, one time, there's a journalist in San Antonio that like follows me. He's this young black nerdy guy or whatever, and I was next to him at a festival one time. Yeah. And it was when Wu-Tang was playing at Fun Fest. And like I never forget this kind of spoke volumes to me, which is like we're standing in this in this audience. We're pretty close to the stage, and Wu-Tang is playing, which means 3 of the original members of Wu-Tang are playing. And like somebody's kids, and like I don't know, there's a hologram ODB or some shit or whatever.
A hologram of ODB.
But Wu-Tang is playing, and their set at this point is like it's
not the Coachella hologram of Tupac level though. Yeah. We're talking about like a screen print.
No, there was like a hologram. It wasn't good. It was like there was like an R2D2 that came out, and then he projected.
He was smaller than everyone. Yeah. It wasn't life-size ODB. It was a mini.
It was like in Star Wars, where he's as big as a bar of soap.
Save me, ODB. You're my only hope. Yeah. Oh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah. I farted. Fuck. So you saw Wu-Tang.
Yeah. So. Oh goddamn, it's funny.
Oh fuck, dude. Just a little ODB. Yo, baby, I like it raw.
And it's you know how You know how in Star Wars,
Yeah.
it's like it's just the 1 6-second track repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
But that's like the beat. It's just
He's got bars.
Yeah.
He's got 4 bars worth of message.
it's just na 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 na.
Oh, fuck me. God damn it, that's so I think I can make that on Photoshop.
Yeah, that's funny as shit.
I think I can make that. I'm gonna try for that tonight on Premiere. I think I can do it.
But so okay, so Wu-Tang has this whole thing where they come out
Yeah.
and they're like their performance is like, to me it seems so different from when you hear the early recordings and then you watch early videos of like, you know, how hip hop even works. It's just like, you know, you're putting together this thing in the studio, yeah. Like when you perform it, like that generation of hip hop, it seems almost like, well, you have to take this thing we already like crafted in a mixed media sort of way, and then when you perform it, it's like you pretty much just play the track, but then the people that do the vocals come out and they're sort of like, somebody once described it really interestingly as like it's almost like a pep rally, like it's all this call and response and like, you know, and so like there was this thing where they're just like, yeah, you know, they just kind of stumble out on stage and they're like, all right, we're just here to get everyone hyped up or whatever, and they kept going like, you know, put your W's up, and everyone does the Wu-Tang hand gesture, and everyone's Wu-Tang, and I'm standing next to this dude who's like a music journalist, and he's black, and he's so clear, like he gets it way more than anyone else does. Everyone else is like mired in white guilt and stuff, and like they're like, yeah, if they tell us to put our hands up, we do. And he just goes like, don't tell me what to do. Like he just yells at Wu-Tang, like stop giving me instructions.
He's the man who defied Wu-Tang.
But I thought it was like so funny because I was like, yeah, you're right. Like this is silly that this is the show. Is that like they go like, put your hands up, and they're not really into it, and then we go like, yeah, and we're like feeling awkward and shit. But like, I don't know, it just kind of took me out of the moment for a second, I guess. What the fuck were we talking about before I got into that?
No idea. But here's the next point. Let's talk about DACA.
Yeah, for sure.
You started up. I'm gonna grab another beer.
Yeah, can you grab me one too?
You got it, buddy.
All right. Well, I'm gonna.
Hey Jake, what's DACA?
Yeah. So actually, I'm glad that Carlos Delgado is here because I consider myself pretty well read on a lot of shit. I don't really know what's going on with DACA as much as other people because I don't know, I just kind of fell behind this week because the news is moving so fast. The only thing I really know about it that I think is, you know, kind of a salient point is that like it started during Obama based on the assumption that we would be handing off the presidency to a Democratic candidate, and that's why it's so bad right now.
Yep.
Because he handed over like the information of a bunch of people that signed up under this immigration program to, you know, now Trump. That is like horrible.
Yeah, that's you're giving the assassins list to the assassin.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Okay, so just to preface the following, I'm not a dreamer. I was lucky enough to have been born.
Oh, I'm not a dreamer.
I'm not a dreamer. Oh, baby, I like it raw. I was born in Jersey. I was lucky enough to be American. I'm a wild, winding road American. And but
I'm on my way home, sweet home,
Mama.
That's an REO Speedwagon song, and I just realized how bad the lyrics tie into being sent out of the country.
Well, yeah, it's pretty bad.
I'm on my way home, sweet home.
And then you get killed by the drug triad in Guatemala.
Yeah.
I was born in Jersey, but my siblings weren't, and my cousins aren't, and my nieces and nephews aren't, and a couple of them are what we would call dreamers, participants of the DACA program. And so this being repealed, the problem is that they're not sending out the black vans for dreamers. They're sending out the black vans for what they consider law-breaking immigrants, illegal immigrants. But if you happen to be in the vicinity, you get scooped up. And if you're a dreamer, now that means that you are deported. even though you were, on your way home from school, or you were hanging out with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and you're walking back, or, you're working some kind of job, and then they come into your job to pick up all of the illegal immigrants in the back, but they got you too because you look Latino, and they get sent to not even the right place, because last month my cousin got picked up by ICE and he got sent to Guatemala, which is fucked up because we're Ecuadorian. So
that really happened?
Yeah, that really happened, and he'll be back. We got a lawyer, it'll be fine, but he got sent to they don't give a fuck, dog. They're just like,
do they ever really pick up people that just look Hispanic and aren't?
In the South, in Arizona, New Mexico.
There's this comic named Max Bruno here in New York.
Oh, yeah, Max Bruno. Yeah.
I just never really thought about it, but I was talking to him the other day about how I always get whitewashed on Twitter and shit. It's like, oh, you're a white man. And I'm like, I don't like to, I'm not a fucking Azza. I'm not as a Latino, but if
Azza.
But if you're going to scream it at me, then I have to go, well, it's not what you necessarily think it is. But I was talking
Azza. My God, that's so fucking funny.
I took that from somebody else. There's somebody very funny coined that as a term of just a tribe of people called the Azzas. I think it might have been Aaron Gloria Ryan, who's on Race Wars.
So funny, dude.
But
Azza.
Yeah. People that start every sentence with a, Azza. So I'm not one of those, but it comes up because people just scream the white thing at me. So I was talking to Max Bruno about that. About how that's just a thing that happens online, because I'm extremely online and all that shit. But he was like, yeah, no, it's so funny. It's like we switched bodies because Max is he's just Italian. I never thought to ask him because
Max is just Italian.
I don't ask people their fucking I don't go, hey, how nice to meet you. What's your background?
No, right. That's a white people move.
He's darker than maybe
he's
both
an
of
olive
us.
motherfucker. He's an olive ass motherfucker.
Yeah.
He's from Ohio.
So I just imagine the cops picking him up and just sending him to some country he's not from,
Yeah, welcome to Lithuania. This is where you live now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Max could definitely be a victim of the wrong deportation for sure.
Yeah.
Shout out to Max Bruno.
Yeah, hell yeah. Follow Max Bruno. He's very funny.
Very funny guy. But that's so that really happened, and it's okay. Trump repealing DACA wasn't a campaign promise. It wasn't something that people clamored for. What that means, him repealing DACA, is an appeasement of this racist subset of America.
That's all it is, right?
That's all it is. Dude, there is no gain to repealing DACA. You are losing qualified Americans, and I say Americans wholeheartedly, who are going to be contributing members of society, the economy, and our country. You are literally just saying, fuck you, you're brown, get the fuck out of this country. And what's his name? The little Keebler elf?
Mitch McConnell?
No, the of Justice, what is his, a little guy.
Which one looks like a Keebler elf?
The little guy, the
Paul Ryan?
No, Defense of Justice, or the head
Jeff
of
Sessions.
Yeah, Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions.
Yeah.
Came out being like, well, no, the reason we're repealing DACA is because we allowed a lot of criminal elements to come into our country, and also we had an influx of just mothers and children and infants rushing the border and in desert situations, and we don't want them to go through that. So we're repealing DACA to discourage desperate mothers and children from rushing our border and endangering their own lives. Well, dude, they're running from gang and drug-related violence. They have a death sentence in their own country.
Yeah,
they're coming here for a fucking chance.
The other thing, the one thing I think is kind of important to point out about this is that all of this, if they don't believe these people for a second that they actually believe that this is an actual problem, because
absolutely,
as racist as
100%.
they are, what they're doing is they're trying to divide you, and the way that they're doing that is telling you that well, your economic situation is bad, and it's bad because these other people are going on, and they're trying to create a false sense that there's a scarcity of money in this country. Meanwhile, we also say that we're the wealthiest country on earth and whatever. And all this shit is happening at the same time that there was a bipartisan signing of a bill to pump like $500 billion into the military to do some shit that none of us signed off on. Right?
What are we expanding for? Who we fucking up? Huh?
That amount of money
Who we fucking
would
up?
alleviate all of these problems.
We could fix hunger.
Yeah.
We could stop. Hey, you hungry? Not on my watch. Boom.
I mean, as crazy as that sounds, like a lot of people will just say, like, "Hey, Carlos, big pie in the sky" or whatever. Like, I mean, if
No,
you
fuck
look
that.
at like
Yeah,
the research
right.
on like UBI and things like that, or just like social programs, or the big one. I mean, the thing that like leftist people won't stop talking about, which is like single payer healthcare as just being the first step towards universal coverage or whatever. Like those things like don't cost that much money. And it's dwarfed by the amount of money that they would cost is dwarfed by the amount of money that we keep throwing into the fucking military.
I want to do a thing where I walk out on the street on a Friday, and I grab a person, and I'm like, "Hey, you got your pay stub on you?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Don't show it to me. I want you on camera. Be like, I want you to look at that. I want you to go to the tax section. Did you know that most of that goes to buying a jet that's going to sit in a warehouse? Did you know that?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, no. You know, healthcare? 2 cents. 2 cents from your check.
Yeah.
A new stealth bomber that's going to blow up Syrians? 90% of your check. Did you know that?
Yeah, and we tell each other I just
want to do that.
They're taking it out for your for your fucking Social Security or whatever.
Which is not going to exist when we get old.
Yeah.
That's not going to be there.
Well, the fucking country might not exist.
Dog, that's why I'm trying to be famous. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get a second fiddle TV show spot. I'm just like, yeah, I'm the funny, charming Latino neighbor on your sitcom.
Yeah.
Because that's the only chance I got at this point, man. I don't have no 401k. I'm 401 broke, bitch.
That's why we're all trying to like get some shit to pop off like this. Which is why when you look at like poor communities, like you wonder like why are these people watching America's Got Talent? Why are these people buying lottery tickets?
Right.
Why are these people trying to become like rappers and basketball players and shit like that? It's because like when it gets that like you get to the most dire parts of American culture, like there's no ladder out of it. It's like you have to do one thing that makes you into a fucking millionaire.
Once a week, I call my my mama, and I'm just like, "Hey, how are you? You still old and Latino?" She's like, "Yes," and always at the end of the call, she'll always be like, "Hey, play these numbers for me." Every time, every week.
Yeah, sure.
There's no fail. She's like, "Hey, play these numbers. We're going to win it big." Since I was a kid, dude.
Yeah.
When I was a fucking kid, I would run to the local bodega where we grew up, and they sold me the ticket for my mom because they knew my mom. And I was like a kid. I wasn't old enough to buy the ticket.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So they'd be like, oh, hey, Maria's kid. Like, "Hey, can I play 6-9-42 in the Jesus Cross?"
But your mom played 69-420. Those were her numbers.
Well, those are the numbers that I say out loud whenever, so that's what I went to automatically. But no, not normally. She'll play like some kind of like 777 Jesus, Hail Jesus. But
yeah, for sure.
But for me, it was. I'd be like, "Hey, come get 69-420," and they'd be like, "Of course." And that's been my whole thing. Like, dude, I grew up on the make it big philosophy since I was a fucking kid. I was just like, look, I'm not going to hit a medium. I got to do what I can do to make it because this is the country we live in.
Yeah, well, that's why, like, the American dream isn't, like, it's not socialism. It's winning the lottery.
Yeah.
It's like getting more money than everyone else. I have to pee real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
All right. Okay. And we're back.
Yeah. I had to pee.
Yeah, me too. With this lottery thing, I mean, with that being like this strange cultural center, this quasi religion for a lot of America, like I think it speaks a lot because it speaks to how hopeless a lot of people are in the system and how also brainwashed they are by the idea of the meritocracy as being a worthwhile, like a fair thing in this country. Like, because winning the lottery isn't necessarily cheating at capitalism. It's like, well, it's playing a hand that pays off really well. I mean, you buy a lottery ticket. It's
new money. Like, if you win the lottery, it's not a meritocracy. You got lucky. And luck has nothing to do with a meritocracy.
But I feel like those people feel like they earned it because they played the lottery long enough, which just speaks to the fact that we're all just gambling so hard.
You're right.
And I guess I think about
put
this
my dollars in.
because I've had a lot of conversations with people from the South or whatever who have like a lot of deep insight into like why these people all watch these shitty reality shows and have this like myth that you can make it out of there and stuff like that. And this is also a thing like in the fucking hood and shit.
Do you think reality shows are like a new lottery?
I mean, I think they're reflective of the same desire, which is that like that thing Jeremy said in the Antifa episode that it was a Steinbeck quote about how like Americans don't consider themselves working class; they consider themselves temporarily embarrassed millionaires.
Oh my God! Yes.
That's why people watch like America's Got Whatever the Fuck or American Idol or whatever.
America's got balls.
Yeah,
and then we kick them.
Yeah,
in the balls.
Because the dream of like winning one of those things based on your small amount of talent is like way more enticing than the dream of like,
working hard to become a music teacher who's very respected in her community,
or like even beyond that, liking music and like like making music because you like it, and then just living a normal life. Like,
dude, shout out to Jeremy. That was a tremendous quote he pulled out because it flashed me back to that realization. We're like, dude, send my shout out to Anya Volz, who is in the Schwick of It podcast, where she interviews artists in Bushwick about their coming up story. I'm a fan of it and I like it, but I wanted to come and be like, dude, I am full-time comedy, okay? I barely can pay my rent. I mostly shoplift my meals, and I live the way I live because I choose to live this way artistically. If I wanted to sell out, I could get a customer service job at a startup company because I have years of experience, and I can make $60,000 a year with a comfortable 401k. Now, I can do that tomorrow, but I don't do that. I do what I do, which is do comedy and do this podcast with you, and I write, and I get drunk, and I live the life that I want to live because I believe in it. And it's fucking just like crazy to me that I've never maybe that whole thing is a lottery thing. Like I don't know if I'm gonna make it in show business.
I don't know, man.
Maybe that's a gamble.
I kind of feel like right now in America is a great time to be an artist because usually you have this thing you can tell people who are like, well, I could always leave and go make more money waiting tables or something like that. But like, things are getting so bad that like, no, you're making probably the same amount of money doing this than you would be like doing some straight and narrow shit. So like, that the idea that there's this eject button kind of like, at least for me, like kind of went away. Like, I pick up a square job here and there, and they're so fucking dire that you're like, dude, oh, well, then there's no reason not to go try to make something happen.
Right. It's like, dude, I look at my resume now, and I'm like, I can't get hired anywhere. Like, they're going to be like, hey, so what have you done for the last 5 years? Travel the country and gotten drunk with strangers? Like, I can't. Like, if I go to a proper job now with my resume, I'm unhireable. And so, like, I've committed to my life now. I've committed to this is what I do. I do comedy. I do podcasting. I do writing. And this is my job now.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I'm going to buy my mom a scratch-off ticket before I see her next week for her birthday, Maybe I'll give her, like, a $20 winner. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, hopefully we'll all win the lottery or something. I personally know some people who have won a lot of money lately. And, like, good for them and shit. But, like, I mean, it puts in perspective, like, well, the situation that we're all in this system that we think is fair, that it's like, like Jeopardy, like the smartest person wins, but it's not. Also, Jeopardy, I'm not convinced the smartest person wins that. A lot of these fucking freaks that have won that show have turned out to be complete morons, like on Twitter.
Dude. So Jeopardy is strategy because it's about picking the right category in the right sequence. You could do potpourri for 600, or you can start with American presidents for 100. It's about gaining the momentum. Jeopardy is not about being the smartest person. Raj Sivaravan, very funny comic, brilliant scientist, was on Jeopardy, and he lost. He's one of the smartest. Like, you ask, he's like a fucking computer. You ask him anything, his eyes roll back in his head. He's just like, boop. The contract of 1812.
Oh, he's Bran.
He's Bran.
Hey,
He's
yo,
Bran.
Bran, why don't you Google
Bran.
that for me?
He's literally Bran, and he's ancient Google.
Bran,
right?
can you Bing something for me right now?
I can ask Jeeves.
Yeah. All right, it was a long time ago in Game of Thrones. All they had was Ask Jeeves and Lycos.
But he lost. He lost the episode just strategy. Like, this other person was just like nailing the easy questions. And,
Yeah,
like,
well,
and,
do you know who
and
Arthur
beat him out.
Chew is?
Who's Arthur Jew?
Man, no, Arthur Chew.
Oh. I'm like, Arthur Jew? Who's that? Is he Catholic?
Yeah.
Who's Arthur Chew?
Arthur Chew is this guy who won Jeopardy, like, I don't know, a few years ago, and he won it by applying, like, game theory or whatever the fuck that shit is to it. His thing was, like, he would jump all over the board, and so no one could anticipate what he was going to pick next. And he had, like, one of those Ken Jennings style winning streaks. But if you follow him on Twitter now, he is an idiot. Like,
He's like,
he
make
fucking
America
sucks.
great again.
No, he's more of he's the far other end where, like, he's just got really bad takes about, like, how Hillary is bae and all that shit, and like and like one of my favorites is, like, he just at one point was like watching gay porn to try to understand how uncomfortable women are in public all the time, and it was like bragging like about how woke he is. But
So he was a virtue signaler.
Yeah, I mean, he was just watching gay porn that no one gave a shit about. But there's also so he had all this, like, quote unquote virtual signal shit about, like, how woke he was about gender and stuff. But apparently there's this, like, documentary that somebody filmed about him, and the whole point of, like, what's happening in the documentary is that he is married and is just so neglectful of his wife that, like, I think she might leave him or something. Like, she's like, she just has to, like, clean up after him and do his dishes all the time and shit. Meanwhile, he's on the computer talking about how much he respects women and shit. And, like, yeah, so, like, I haven't seen it, and I think it's hard to get a copy of. But, like, this is a guy who was on Jeopardy who won a lot of Jeopardy. So it makes you look at it and go, well, does the smartest person win this show, or is that there's some other mechanism at work? And I think that's kind of a good metaphor for, like, how we view getting ahead in capitalism in America, because, like, America is like if everyone's playing Jeopardy, but some people start with, like, a negative million points because they grew up in a different place than you and shit.
Oh my God. That is, yes, exactly. So America is Jeopardy. Sometimes you start off with 0. Sometimes you start off with negative 5,000.
And then the people
but
that
you're
get
still
ahead
trying to win. You're still trying to win.
And the people that get ahead aren't necessarily the people that are, like, the best. They're just people that are best at playing the game, like, in terms of how to make money or whatever. And so that, like,
I think we just figured out American racism. It's Jeopardy, but you started with different values.
It's all Alex Trebek's fault.
Fuck that old ass Canuck.
Yeah. But to kind of get into where I'm going and what I think we should do for the next, like, the preemie episode.
Oh, the preemie. The preemie baby.
The little preemie.
Little preemie baby. And also, shout out, subscribe to the Patreon. Don't be a bitch.
Yeah, so if you want to hear this, like, I'm gonna put a lot of work into this because it's become a thing that I feel strongly about now, and which I didn't want to, like, really get into. But
listen, you guys are listening to our shit, so you can't deny this. I'm a fucking rider. You don't want to fuck with me.
So I'll summarize kind of how I got here. I'm a nerd and an idiot and whatever, and, like, I like to read a lot, but, like, recently I've been sort of, like, just taking it as much as I can. Like, something happened after the election where I was just like, I'm gonna crush as many books as possible.
Yeah, I did see you do that post.
So I've, like, been reading a lot, and it really helped, like, in terms of leftism and Marxism. Like it helped a lot of things come into focus that were just, like, distant, like, patchworky sort of thoughts that I didn't really understand were connected. And it's good. I feel really good about it. I've been organizing with the DSA. I've been learning a lot. I've been challenging a lot of my own beliefs, getting all these conversations with people, yada, yada, yada. Like, definitely turned around a couple of things I believe. Like, I've been, like, actively pursuing a lot of, like, intellectual shit. But I've also sort of noticed in doing this that, like, this is not a situation most people get into. Like, most people do not
at all.
deliver pizzas and read, a book every few days or whatever and just, like, go like that. So, like, I've been really thinking a lot about, like pop literature and pop intellectualism and shit like that.
Ooh, interesting.
And how dangerous it is. And there's this book I've seen getting passed around a lot called Hillbilly Elegy. And Hillbilly Elegy, at first I thought, well, this seems kind of harmless and seemed kind of intriguing. And I thought maybe I'd read it. And the more and more I read about it and also just, like, heard, like, other
people talk about
like
it.
other leftist comedians and podcasters talk about it, it became, like, really apparent that it's kind of whack. It's kind of bad. So if you want to understand the initial problems with Hillbilly Elegy, I would suggest listening to a podcast called Trillbilly Workers Party. The first episode they ever did was it's these 3 fucking East Kentucky hillbillies with these delightful accents. They sound like hillbillies.
Hey, y'all.
And they roast the fuck out of this book. And the reason you need to understand that, like, people actually from Kentucky are roasting this book is because this book is very misrepresentative of not just life there, but like the overall way people feel about how to get ahead in America or whatever. So, like, the thing, and I haven't read it yet, so I think what I'm gonna do for this next episode, I'm just gonna fucking read it and we'll just get into it or whatever. But, like,
you know what, Jake? I'm gonna read it too.
let's fucking do it. I mean,
I'm
let's
gonna read it too. You know what? The weight. Listen, Atlas. The world is not on your shoulders alone. I will split the load. I will read it as well.
Well, let's do it. I mean, I'm into it. Let's split Kentucky in half or whatever, and we'll carry him.
I got West Kentucky.
I mean, but like, so the reason I think it's really important is because, it seems really appealing to, like, a lot of people around me that are maybe more passive consumers of, like, political information.
Oh, yeah.
And that seems like it's no big deal. I mean, it seems like, well, people are at least trying, right? But when you look at who wrote the book Hillbilly Elegy,
Who wrote the book?
it's very jarring. All right, so there's this guy named JD Vance who, like, doesn't. He's not actually named JD. He's named James or some shit. Like, he sort of switched
named
his.
James D.
He changed his name, from what I hear,
Like
and
James
I'll
Van
fact check
Der
all this stuff. But I heard that he changed, like, he hillbillied up his name
No
to
way.
write this
Are
book,
you-
and he's actually
really?
from Ohio. And the thing is, so the whole book is, like, it's presented as a memoir, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about this guy and he's from the sticks, and then he makes
From the Ozarks.
and then he makes it into like an Ivy League school, and then he makes it and he gets ahead, right? And so his memoir is this thing where he goes back and he talks about, like, the trash he came from and why they're self-destructive and why they're bad and how he got out of it and why he's sort of better than them, right? And that, if you read a fucking book, if you've read Hillbilly Elegy and you want to understand why that's bad, read Listen Liberal by Thomas Frank, because he'll explain exactly why that's, like, a really big fallacy.
This
like,
is a reading podcast.
right. So I'm not going to get into Thomas Frank, but
what's the shortcut of Thomas Frank? Why is it a fallacy?
well, okay, so Thomas Frank sort of he wrote this great book called Listen Liberal that's all about, like, how the Democratic Party got from being, like, a party of the people and, like, unions and shit to this party where, like, they completely abandoned, like, populism, and now have decided, like, the only way to get ahead in America is for you to try to, like, rise above
The bootstraps thing.
But that, like, not everyone can do that. Like, they wouldn't make any sense. The economy wouldn't make sense if everyone rose up.
And we just said that, just like, hey, it's like Jeopardy. Like, you're starting at negative $5,000 and you're starting at zero.
Well, that's also what I was talking about with, like,
make it.
with, like, the myth of, like, becoming a rapper and shit like that. Is like, well, that somehow this will bring everyone else up around you. It doesn't work. I mean, it's
it
not how it
doesn't
works,
work.
right? So
no, it's not. It's new money and your money, not our money.
So there's nothing wrong with, like, inspiring people to try to, like, become entrepreneurs and become better or whatever. But when you tell them that is the only way, what you're also telling them is what's going on in this Hillbilly Elegy book,
Dude,
where you tell
yes.
the other people that were stayed behind that didn't make it out that it's their fault. They didn't work hard enough. That if they're on food stamps and shit, then it's like they're mooching off the system. You shouldn't be drinking Mountain Dew and shit, like all this shit. When it's like all the fucking money that would be able around to fix this thing is in the goddamn military, right? So the thing about like that book that really troubled me is because it's presented in such a way, the first ever sketch we did on this show, we talked about like the white working class.
We did.
Like that's a big problem in America right now. The media wants to tell people that like it wants to tell like comfortable liberals, here's something you can blame Trump on, and that's a bunch of hillbillies. And that's not the problem. Capitalism, the whole fucking system, the whole goddamn thing is the problem. And the problem is a lot of people don't want to admit this. It's inside of you. Like you did something that contributed to this whole thing.
You were complacent.
We can all turn around and fix this fucking thing, but it's not the scapegoat, which is the white working class. But this guy who isn't part of that really fucking cashed in on the fact that a lot of people's old liberal aunts like really want to. Oh, I knew it. It was these fucking these white trash freaks, right? But the problem with that is it's a logical fallacy to go like, well, you know, it was just these fucking poor people or whatever.
Just because you're a winner, it doesn't make others losers.
Right. So that's what Listen Liberal is all about, right? But
right.
my main the reason this book infuriated me so much is because, like, listen, if a straight up Nazi wrote a book that said like, all poor people are poor because they're not trying hard enough, we would all know well enough to go, well, this person's a Nazi, and that is bad. Like, they're not saying that's like an untrue thing they're saying. But if it's presented in like a way that's like palatable for woke people really sink their teeth into it. And so like a lot of liberal friends of mine like have been passing around this book, and you know, it's really similar to like the Ta-Nehisi Coates articles that have been coming out where he's kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But like if you want to seem woke and you want to be sharing the writing of somebody smarter than you, it's fucking cool. It feels cool as shit to share that Ta-Nehisi Coates article on
and
Facebook.
I'm sure it feels cooler to be like, oh, you don't know about this?
Yeah.
Let me give you some knowledge.
And that Coates shit, I mean, it's got that cool ass like illustration on it. And It's got this like
it's
real,
very trendy. It's very
this
hip.
real heady like, you know, title, which is like the first white president. Like, what's his thesis mean? You know, like,
God damn it.
you know, but I mean, like that article, it's in capturing. Like, you read it and you're like, wow, this guy's so smart. But if you actually pick it apart, it's like, what do you mean he's the first white president? You mean white supremacy hasn't been the problem this whole fucking time?
Who was the first president?
Yeah, George Washington,
Like,
motherfucker.
come on, bitch.
He owned
what
slaves.
Are you saying?
Yeah, and so a lot of what Coates does in this article is talk about how like what he does is he frames the concept of classism as a thing that like only like a red herring, like it can just go away. Like only Bernie freaks are interested in this. Meanwhile, you know, what was MLK talking about? He was talking about classism. Like, he understood the whole fucking thing.
That's why they killed his ass.
Yeah, I mean, for real. He was, like, in the middle of putting together a Poor People's March, and they fucking killed him, right?
Goddamn right.
So Coates is, like, buying into this whole... Coates and fucking J.D. Vance together are buying into this thing where they can sell rich liberals an idea that, like, you know, oh, you're really mad at Bernie Bros, right? Well, we can put the entire Trump thing on him and like this whole idea of class, right? And so that's really fucking whack. And if this sounds fucked up and you don't believe me, here's what you need to understand about J.D. Vance. The back of the book, the endorsements he got, are from one person, his boss, the person he works for, named Peter Thiel. Now, if you don't know who Peter Thiel is...
Who's Peter Thiel?
Peter Thiel's a venture capitalist. He's like a crazy...
Fuck that guy.
I know. It sounds crazy that in 2017 we have words like venture capitalist. Because that sounds like he's wearing a top hat and riding a Zeppelin.
Dude, I used to make fun of people by calling them captains of industry.
Yeah. No, it's funny. But that's seriously, that's how we've... That's a thing now.
Venture capitalist. He's on a Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Well, 20 degrees starboard. We're heading towards profit.
For real, though. So Peter Thiel...
Fuck that guy.
Peter Thiel is this guy who is he's like a crazy like Silicon Valley psycho.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
he's
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
amass
yeah.
a lot of money.
Some kind of like Elon Musk, like this whole thing is a simulation kind of guy.
Peter Thiel owns Venmo, I believe, or PayPal, one of the two, maybe both.
Probably Venmo.
I think it might be both.
Oh shit, he's a gangster.
I don't know. Don't hold me to any of this. I got to fact check all
Don't
this.
fact
but
check this.
It's like shit like this, and
He owns a major currency exchange company.
and he's gay, but he's in the closet. But it's like one of those things.
Wait, how do we know that?
Well, because it's like one of those things where like everyone who works in tech is like,
Oh, it's like
he's
John Travolta.
yeah.
It's like we all know he's gay, but like we're not gonna
So-
allegedly.
Gawker published a thing about him, like, and mentioned that he was gay,
Yeah.
and he raised like a historical amount of money to sue Gawker, and I can't remember off the top of my head whether it was him or Hulk Hogan that eventually finally put the nail in the Gawker coffin.
Dude, it was both of them though.
I think
it was I think Hulk Hogan was the face of it, but he was the money behind shutting down Gawker.
I don't want to speak out of school, but it's essentially what this guy did
I'll put
was
that out.
raise
I'll put my name on it.
much money that he silenced a media source, which is like fascist shit, right?
Yeah.
So-
Businesses shutting down free publication media.
So JD Vance works for Peter Thiel. Do you know who Peter Thiel works for?
Who Peter Thiel
Donald
worked for?
Trump. He
Oh!
works. He works for Donald
You
Trump.
didn't even give me a chance to answer. I was
because I was
gonna say Donald Trump.
I'm sorry. I wanted to spit it out real hard. So the book,
I was gonna say it. No.
this book that we think is giving us this like liberal perspective on like what happened and how Donald Trump got elected.
Yeah.
It's Trump's people are fucking endorsing it and writing it. The other big person that endorsed this book,
Who's that?
Charles Murray, right? And Charles Murray wrote
Who
a book.
Charles Murray?
He wrote a book with some fucking shitty pseudoscientist called The Bell Curve. And The Bell Curve...
Oh, God damn it. That's like most of my grammar school education. I heard about that.
Right. The Bell Curve is like a Malcolm Gladwell-y, like sort of like pseudoscience, New York Times top bestseller that's all about how like...
I'm Malcolm Gladwell, and I'm half Jamaican.
Oh, my God. His voice sucks so hard.
And I want you to know that if you're on the left of this imaginary structure that we created in a racist laboratory, you have no chance at life. You're a maven. And that's how we define you in our new neoliberal society.
Oh, my God. That was like the worst This American Life I've ever heard.
Fuck that guy, dude.
Oh, my God. I know, right?
Suck a
So
dick.
all of these people, like Charles Murray, Malcolm Gladwell, fucking Peter Thiel, all these people, so the thing about like the Bell Curve, that book
Yeah.
that Charles Murray wrote, is that
Yeah.
like in that book, like a lot of people like don't read the whole thing and they go like, there's actually this interesting thing about like trying hard enough to get ahead or whatever, and then
Yeah.
like reaching momentum and all this stuff. A lot of parts of that book argue that part of the reason that black people in America aren't as well off as everyone else might have to do with genetics. It's eugenics.
It's eugenics.
So you look at this and you go,
what the fuck?
why
dude?
would a eugenicist like this
my
book
God.
about how poor people being poor is their own fault? Why would they like it so much, right? Because it feeds into the same idea that they like, which is that just like it's your own fault and it's trying
And
to
it's all about status. It's just like I'm here, you're there because you're not trying hard enough. I try hard, and there's also this like fear where it's just like if they try hard enough, then they can take over my position. So clearly they are inferior to me because they're not trying hard enough. Like there's a lot to unpack in that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
there's
fallacies.
so much. Yeah, there's so many fallacies in that fucking situation.
Right, and so like, I guess this book, Hillbilly Elegy, like really got in my head because
well, it hit us in a hard way because we got into an argument about it. Not
Well,
you and me, but
right, we all got in this huge argument at this table, but
group of people. But it's fine.
so the thing about it is that like the reason it seems so dangerous to me is because I get how if you're not paying attention and you haven't sort of like had your fucking little eyeball woken up to like what the Democratic Party actually means and what leftism is. I'm speaking of a guy from the South. It took me a long time to really break through this wall myself. It gets really easy to buy into these narratives that are counterintuitive to your own like family and shit like that.
dude, rhetoric is very cunning. Rhetoric is cunning.
So Hillbilly Elegy is way more dangerous than like, Glenn Beck's book is, because like your own friends and roommates might like buy into it and then it informs what they're talking about. But I'll say this, I did get into this argument with a buddy of mine who I hold very dear, and I love this person. This guy,
Friend of the podcast.
Mishka Shubali, right?
Friend of the podcast.
Mishka Shubali is a musician and a writer I know, and he, I successfully stalked him. I saw him when he was open for Stanhope. He's a singer-songwriter, and I bugged him, and then years later we ended up gigging together. And then he went, "Oh shit, you're actually funny," and now we're friends and stuff like that. And to the point where, like, you know, we do gigs together sometimes.
Oh,
and
that's dope.
So I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times a year ago. He now teaches writing at Yale. He teaches my writing at Yale.
Whoa.
Like, I respect this person a lot.
Wow, that's crazy.
But he's from, like, a certain part of the country, and he really liked Hillbilly Elegy. And I went, like, why? And I got into it with him, and it was so interesting because he's a fucking writer, and all his music is so personal, and it's so much like, you know, I like to think of things as a spectrum between the personal and the political, and it's all related, but there is certain parts of life where it's like, this is about you and me, like two people or whatever, and like how I think about things through my own eyes. And then
it goes from peripheral to parochial.
Yeah, and so I think Mishka is a master of the personal, and like in the edits, he helped me edit the piece I wrote for the New York Times, and he really got me to a point where I was making it about what it's like to have like the creative process in your head and all this shit or whatever. Like this guy is a master of this thing, and he liked the book, and I went, oh no, why? But the more I talked to him about it, everything he said about it was about like the author telling his story. Right?
Whoa.
And I went, oh my God, you're right. Like, there is a way of reading this where it's about this person trying to present their worldview in a certain way, and then maybe it got hijacked by all these venture capitalists and shit, and that's why it got sold in a certain way, right? It's really interesting. So I don't even want to bury the whole book, because when I talk to people about it, they're like, no, there's some good shit in there, and I think that's probably why, because on an emotional level, like on a level when you watch an episode of Freaks and Geeks or some shit, and you're like, oh my God, my heart, you know, like you relate to something, there's probably something good in this book, but that's why it's so fucking dangerous, because it has all these sunken, like, political things, like, you know, sort of like hidden in it that then like get in your head and then make you go like, well, maybe poor people shouldn't have welfare, you know?
Right, because like that's the that's like the wave that's left over from absorbing that knowledge. Like for me, like what I got from that was just like, for me it was like anime. It's just like every
I love it.
You know, everybody loves it when Goku defeats the enemy with, you know, his like Kamehameha power beam wave, right?
I follow you.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's a power beam struggle, which is an actual term.
Yeah.
Where it's two opposing forces shoot their beams at each other, and then the beam bounces back and forth, but eventually the hero wins.
Yeah.
So it's like
they also do that in Harry Potter.
they did a power beam.
They
struggle.
pretty much ripped it off of. Dragon Ball Z.
Really from Dragon Ball Z, but like no, it's like yeah. So like. We all love the underdog come up story where you started from the bottom, now we're here / Drake.
Started from the bottom, now we're here is the most neoliberal sentence in American pop culture.
Well, Drake is a neoliberal.
Yeah. Well, sure.
I'm putting that out there. Hashtag Drake, hashtag neoliberal.
Ironically from Canada.
Ironically.
Well, actually, now that I think about it.
Well, yeah, go figure.
Yeah.
But like, so you have that, that struggle, and so we all love a coming up story. That is one of the 6 stories that have existed since Greek antiquity. There's only 6 stories that exist in modern narrative, and we all love the come up story. The person who was down comes up. So if this guy wrote that story, be like, hey, look, I started in the Ozarks. Okay, I was picking my toes and fucking rabbits since I was 12, right? And he was like, okay, now I'm in Yale, and now I'm a businessman, and now I have a 401k. We all want that.
That's the thing about the meritocracy.
We all want that shit.
He might not even be like trying to deceive us by telling that story. There's this thing, and this is why this is why you have to fucking read Listen Liberal by Thomas Frank. There is this thing in like our culture where if you do get ahead, you have no reason not to believe that it was because you're great. It's very hard to get ahead and then turn around and go, well, I got lucky, and like the system is set up in a certain way. I mean, it's just set into your ego or whatever. So like this guy that made it out of the sticks, there's no reason for him not to write a book about it and go like, hey, here's this perspective I have on it. It's just that we needed to fucking read his book and then tell him well, here's why that's probably not true, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you got to have the fucking discourse. There's nothing wrong with having the discourse, you know?
Well, no, that is what's wrong now because we don't want to have discourse now. Now it's like Sith rules. Either you are, the light side of the Force or the dark side of the Force. There's no middle ground anymore. There's no gray Jedi Council. Hashtag to all of my Star Wars fans.
Is that a real thing? The Gray
Jedi
Council?
That is correct. It is in the extended universe in the novels where there is a Jedi Order that lives between the dark and the light. They can use Force lightning, but they can also move objects with the Force because that's the other Force power.
Oh, that's badass.
It's so dope. They're like daywalkers. It's like fucking Blade. You know what I'm saying? Like they walk the line and they fight.
This is what
both the light and the
centrists
dark.
think they are, when in reality they're actually people that have neither of the powers. But the myth of like centrism is like I can use the Force and shoot lightning out of my hands at the same time.
The Great Council are neoliberals.
Yeah. No, but that's what they think they are. That's what they're trying to sell you. Like, why not have both of the things? They don't realize that actually they cancel each other out. And then you're just a fucking human. You're just a little Ewok bitch. All you got is a fucking bow and arrow and an orange hood over your fucking head. What are you gonna do when an AT-AT stomps on your goddamn your little teddy bear?
Fuck your
house,
bows and arrows. Fuck your
bitch.
slingshots. You're going down, cocksucker. You're going down. Fuck the Great Council. Oh my god, dude, that's hilarious.
Oh shit! All right,
shit.
I gotta piss. You want to plug anything?
Yeah. So, hey, everybody. My name is Carl Salgado. October 19th through the 22nd, I'm going to be in Minneapolis for the 10,000 Laughs Comedy Festival. Please come visit me. I'm doing 4 shows, and I'll be there with the great Shane Torres, the Putterbaugh Sisters, and a couple other people. So if you're in Minneapolis, come on out. Have a good time with me. We're going to get drunk and talk about politics.
Hell yeah.
How about you, Jake?
Those people are all funny. I endorse that. Hi, this is Jake Flores, Feral Jokes on the Internet. I will be doing stand-up in Texas next week. I'll put this out as soon as possible. Houston, the 28th of September. I'm doing 3 motherfucking shows. I'm doing a spot. I forgot where, and then I'm doing a spot. I'm doing a Hurricane Harvey benefited Bubba's downtown in Washington.
Support,
and
baby.
then I'm
support.
headlining a fucking bar at a Tex-Mex restaurant called El Real.
Bring me some tacos.
Yeah, and I'll be selling merch. I made a bunch of pins and shit.
Pins.
I'll also be doing Austin the next day, the 29th. I'll be Altercation Fest at Kick Butt Coffee. And then the day after that, the 30th? I might be getting this wrong. There's an ad on my Twitter.
Just
my
go to
pinned
the
tweet.
Twitter.
I'll also be doing the Blind Tiger Comedy Club in San Antonio. And then once I get back, I'll be doing the Knitting Factory in October. I got all sorts of shit coming up.
You doing Knitting Factory?
Yeah, I got the knit, man.
Yeah, baby. Good shit.
Yeah, and I'm doing a bunch of tours and shit. I'm doing another album soon.
Listen, guys.
Follow me on Twitter. I'll put the shit on my pin tweet.
We're out here.
Yeah.
We out, y'all. Hey, you know what? Trump can suck my dick. Goodbye.
Goddamn right. All right. Good night.
Oh, baby. Baby, I eat this shit from right out. Dedicated to all the pretty girls. All the pretty girls. All the pretty girls in the world. And the ugly girls, too. But to me, you pretty anyway, baby. You give me your number, I call you up. You act like your pussy don't interrupt. I don't have no trouble with you fucking me, but I have a little problem with you not fucking me. Baby, you know I'ma take care of you, cause you say you got my baby and I know it ain't true. Is it a good thing? No, it's bad, bitch. For good or worse, makes you switch. So I walk on over with my crystal. Bitches, niggas, put away your pistol. Dirty won't be having it in this house, cause bitch, I'll cripple your style. Now that you heard my charming voice, you couldn't get another nigga. Your coochie won't get moist. If you wanna look good and not be bummy, yo, you better give me that money.
Woo! Hey, dirty. Baby, I got your money, don't you worry. I said, hey, baby, I got your money. Hey, dirty. Baby, I got your money, don't you worry. I said, hey, baby, I got your money.
Yo, so I glanced at the girl glanced at me. I whispered in the air, you wanna be with me? You wanna look pretty though, in my video. Oh, dirty on the hat, and I let you all know. Just dance if you caught up in the Holy Ghost trance. If you stop, I'ma put them killer ants in your pants. I'm the ODB, as you can see. FBI, don't you be watching me. I don't want no problems, cause I put you down in the ground where you cannot be found. I'm just dirt dog trying to make somebody. So give me my streaks and give me my honey. Radios play this all day, every day. Recognize I'm a fool and you love me. None of you better look at me funny. You know my name down, give me my money.
Hey, dirty.
Sing it,
Baby, I got your money.
sing it,
Don't you
girls.
worry. I said, hey,
Just sing it right
baby,
now.
I got your money.
If 31 is money, I think y'all should give him his money.
Baby, I got your money.
That's how I like
Don't
you,
you worry. I said, hey, baby, I got your money.
Sexy, sexy, sexy. Sexy, sexy, sexy. Sexy, sexy, sexy.
Yo, nigga played in the club like this all night. Bitches put your ass out, let me hold it tight. You looking at my wrist saying this so nice. The price, bitch, is diamond shining disco line. Well, you better help me solve my problem. I'ma get this money and rob them. Lucky dog when I won the lotto. Ran up on my car, I'm carrying Rollo. But hold on, you can call me dirty and then lift up your skirt. And you want some of this dirty God made dirt and dirt bust your ass. Stop annoying me, yeah, I play my music loud. And take the bats and old dirty to move the crowd. And say he had his dick in his mouth. Eddie Murphy taught me that back in the house. Now give me my money.